In this video, I am going to show how to do and use the contour nesting feature on Caldera so we can gang up as many irregular shape images onto a flat as possible. Couple of things you need to do before you actually start doing your gang up is you need to open Compose, which is where you're going to do your imposition. Just bring any file in, and you want to make sure that your properties do not have the file name or the date in them. So the way you do that is you bring the file in, click on it, and then you go all the way down to the bottom of properties. Now this part here in information, the date and the file name and the page number should be just as shown. So you don't want these to be on, and I'll show you why at some point in this video. So make sure you turn them off, and then you hit set as default, and then close that up. Okay, so now when we're in this window here for the nesting part, you want to make sure that you have the contour nesting feature enabled and the rotation enabled as well. Those are the only two features that you want to have on. Sometimes this module is a little bit temperamental, so I've seen it where you have this on and you put this on, which overrides this. As you can see, that kind of, the opacity goes back, it screens out. But for some reason, just because you have had this on prior to overriding it with this contour nesting feature, sometimes it's a little glitchy. So what you want to do is you want to turn everything off and only have these two on. Okay. So this image is the image that I was asked to show in particular for this exercise. It's being printed on cardstock, which I understand is 48 by 96 sheet. So I'm going to make this 46 by 90, and I'll see if I can get 10 up. So once you hit that, you bring those in, and you want to hit the nest feature. Okay. That's going to be too big. So let's try this again. 46 by 90. Bring 10 in. Hit the nest. That looks like it should work. Okay, so now we're good. We're within 48 by 96. And what this is doing is it's taken away all of the negative space that could potentially be there if we don't have these two features enabled. Let me create that, and I'll show you what I mean by that. New composite. And we want to rename this. It's always important to rename it and not leave it untitled. So I'm going to call it 1138411 0801 A 10 up gang. If you don't have these features on and you try to bring 10 in to the 48 by 96, it's not going to work. You're going to get 35 by 157.4, and you have all this negative space. So what we want to do, like we saw in the example I just showed, we want to utilize as much of the material as possible. Like this. Again, that gets rid of all the negative space, and basically what it's doing is it's nesting to the cut contour shape in the file. Okay, so let's go ahead and print this. I am going to print this to the lambda because that is a 48 width device. Okay. So we'll go here and we'll go to our page setup, and we'll see that the scale is not at 100%. So we always need to be at 1:1. So in order to actually fix this, we need to get rid of the side barcodes and the actual dots, and we'll leave just the barcodes on the top and on the bottom. So we'll go into cutting, we'll go into tools, we'll turn off our left and right margins, our left and right offsets, our edge marks, and our barcodes left and right. And then we'll hit apply. We'll say OK, and this should get us to 100%. Right, so we're good now, here and here. So let me go ahead and print this. And again, we're within the 48 by 96 parameters for this particular job. And what we'll also do is we'll look at the DXF file just to verify that everything ripped correctly. I'll also show an example of what happens when you leave the date and file name in, or you leave it on in Compose. I already have that ripped actually. We can probably look at that now while this is ripping. Yeah, I called that with IDs. So if we look closely at this, I'll zoom in, and when we have the file name and the date enabled, you can see that in some areas, like right here, it actually goes into the graphic. That is just some odd anomaly at Caldera, that when you're rotating, when you're using the contour nesting feature, it doesn't know what to do with this. So it's best to just turn it off. Okay, let's see if that's done ripping. And it's not done ripping yet. We're at 50%. I think I already had one done. Should be this one. Right. So this one says no IDs on it, which means I turned that off. So if we look closely here, we can see that the graphics are actually clean. The IDs from the Caldera are not printing at all, which is okay for this print job. We have our barcodes top and bottom, and we have our dots. No funny looking dots, no ovals, so we know that this should have produced correctly. We got a barcode. So what I'm going to do now, in order to expedite this video, is I am going to look for the cut file that I already ripped earlier, just to make sure that it looks correct. Please bear with the system as it's a little slow when we open up the zoomed and cut files off of the server. Okay. So I'm going to open up the one that we just did, not the one that I did previous. which is this one, 08018 10-up gang, which is this one. And let's rip it into Illustrator. And this looks correct. So we have our cut contour in yellow, and we have our score lines in red. There's, I think, a 1/4 inch margin in between each, which may or may not be ample. That's dependent on how you're printing, what you're printing on, so on and so forth. But for the most part, this rip was successful, as well as our compose. And it should be with every type of job that has irregular shapes in it, like this one. You just have to remember the keys are, when you're in compose, make sure you only have this nesting feature and the rotation on and nothing else. So again, if you were using these two features and you click on this, this overrides that, but turn that off. Like I said, for some reason in the past when I've done it, when either one of these two features are on and I override it with this, it doesn't seem to work. It may work sometimes, but it may not work all the time, and we want it to work all the time, 100%. So we have these two on, and we want to make sure that the date and file name in the properties window are off. This concludes the video on contour nesting. Thank you.